Good day, everybody. This is C. Balam Solis, also known as Carlos, and welcome to another episode of Power Platform in Higher Ed. Of course, and as always, whatever I built here is called in higher ed because this is the space I work in, but that doesn't mean you cannot apply it in your own space. What we're going to cover today is the third installment of this application I started building 2 episodes ago, where we looked at the use of a custom connector to create a solution and then went on to start enhancing that solution. And today, in the final step, we're going to take one more development step, if you wish, to make this solution available to one of the requirements, which was initially an images curator, and now the uses of these curated images. So we're going to create that interface. We're going to get into that and a whole bunch of other things. But first, here's my intro. Okay, so our platform in higher ed, I'm getting my left and right pointing appropriately. And of course, also, don't forget to subscribe and like and get notifications. One of the things that I want to cover here today, like I said at the beginning, is how we're going to take advantage of what we've built so far and bring all that collection of information to the people that will use it. Let's review a little bit of what the process has entailed. So in the first episode, we connected to pexels.com using the custom connector and learned how to grab information from the Pexels image repository and search for it, delivering it to a Power App. So images and their links, their URLs, which actually come in various sizes and flavors, and then some metadata. And all of that information was delivered to an image curator in a fictional company, the Mayan Developer Group. Using a form, then, the curator put the selected images that were appropriate for the company's purposes in marketing, into a database. But what we stored in our local database was just the metadata and URLs. The actual images still stay in the Pexels environment. Today, we're going to make all that information available to the content curators. We're going to build an interface for them. So this is the solution as we had it last time we spoke. We had an application that, when first launched, picks up a random number of 10 images from the selected images, the featured images at the Pexels site. So we don't have an empty gallery here. If by any chance any of those images that have been selected at random already has been selected for us, the icon here will be white and we will not be able to interact with it. We also build the capability to search. So in this case, if we were interested in cornfields, for example, for some reason, we could see images of cornfields and we get 10 pages, which means we have a gallery across here that will show 10 images. But if we want to see more, we can go to a new page. Now we're going to do a search experience for some of the things we are interested in, such as build or buildings. Let's say we would like an image for a floor plan, and the curator wants to include this in the images available to the content creators. Clicks on the thumbs up and chooses the proper category and writes a description. One of the things we're going to learn today is how we can copy certain content that's already in the app and put it in certain fields. So for example, here, house floor plan is the current description that the photographer or contributor, in this case Pixabay, offered. You can actually copy that, put it here. And we can add to that in the description and then submit it. Once submitted, you can see that this cannot be selected again because it's in our database. We also provided a curator with a link to the contributors' pixels collection and with the ability to download a full resolution version of that image. So this is the full resolution version of that image, and then they can come here and save that image. A couple of more things to remember. We have, when it comes to data sources, the Pexels connector connecting us to that Pexels site, and then our own image depot, which is a SharePoint list that contains the image description or title as given by Pexels, and all these different URLs depending on the size or format of the image, our own description, our own categorization, and this is the Pexels ID number that we are using to associate content between the Pexels site and our own database. So, how do we now build an interface for people that are part of the team in this marketing group? Let's go to screen 2. We're going to insert a gallery, but we are going to use a blank flexible height gallery using our own data. Let's start adding elements to it. We're going to use the medium size URL for the image. We're going to make it fill that space. We're going to give it our description of that image. Again, this is too big. 11 is enough. And we're going to give it an auto height. Let's check our work. And then we're going to do some aesthetics while we're here. Light gray. And then we are going to add an icon and properly size the icon. So this is what the preview for our current database is. These are the things that have been approved by the curator. One of the last things we want to add here, we're going to add one more label, and that is the categories label. Make it an 11, auto height, and put it right there. Okay, let's hit preview again. So here we have a relatively nice looking preview window or preview gallery. I also like doing the navigation, not the scroll bar experience. So I turn this on and this off. And lastly, I just want to make sure that I have highlighted the selected item just for kicks. You may not want to do this. I position it on the XY00, and the height I will set to 25 with a width of 8. And that's just that. It appears here at the corner. I obviously only want it to be visible where it's selected. So if this item is selected, make that true or visible, else false. Test this, and you can see as we select, that's actually the case. So we're doing good so far. Now here's going to be the interesting thing. We need to display the larger image, and what we want to do is provide the user with all the different URLs that are associated with the different sizes and form factors for the selected image, along with the description and the download field. So let's start by displaying the image. I'm going to give ourselves a nice container here just to make it more appealing. And so from there, we're going to call the image using the stored information for the URL. So for the selected file there, we're going to call the image using the pixels large URL. And you see that comes down and fills up our space. We want to have a nice big rendering of it, and we're going to make it fill that space. Okay, so the URL for this image is stored in our database, but the image itself is being called from the Pexels website. We also want to, again, provide the description. And we're going to do two things. We're going to use our own description. I'm going to do an auto height on that. And we want to provide the photographer's description too. So we'll be our gallery 3 selected dot image alt description. So in this particular case, you can see that the photographer did not provide an image description for that. But in this case, the photographer did. Let's make this a little bit nicer, and we put a carriage returner new line character here, and we separate photographer from there. Of course, we could write an if statement to hide this part from the images where the photographer did not provide one, but I'm not going to do that in this particular case. This could be a good exploration for you. All right, so now we need to give credit to the photographer. So let's duplicate this, line it up over here. And in this case, what we want to do is just delete that and give the photographer name. I'm going to bring it down and align it there. All right, now that we have our layout the way we want it, basically the content producers for the company have access to the pre-selected images that the curator has vetted and made available to them, and they can see them here in this gallery. And for whatever item of the gallery selected, they can get additional information on this panel. The next part of the experience that we want to create is to allow the content creators to then access the variety of different sizes and formats that Pexels makes available to its users through URLs. So in the bottom section, right here, we want to produce a gallery that gives them access to those URLs, which we have already stored in our SharePoint list. To create that kind of an experience, The way I have approached this is the following. When the user clicks on one of the tiles or even on the viewpoint, currently we have this set to false. What we're going to do here is we're going to create a collection. And every time they choose a different tile, it's going to clear the existing collection and repopulate it. In that population, we're going to have essentially two columns. One column, which will tell the user what size or what format this image is. And then the second is the URL to the Pexels repository that will bring back that image for them to use. On the select property for the tile, I'm going to start with just writing up a simple two-part of the multi-part collection that we're going to build. So I use my clear collect first, specify the name of the collection as collection image sources, and then here is where I specify that first column, just going to be the size label, so to speak. It's going to tell them it's going to be the tiny offering, the small offering, and then for each of them, the corresponding URL to that specific item. And we enclose each of these records with the squiggly brackets and separate them by a comma. To generate that collection, then, we are going to do an Alt and click on that tile. So let's highlight now our collection, and we can see that it has for size tiny, for this photo, that's going to be the URL. It's partially obscured here, and for small is there. With that, we can then come inside of the container and insert a blank horizontal gallery, which we will populate with that collection. Let's resize the gallery and start adding items to it. I'm going to do a couple of things. I'll bring a text label here. You can see that that text label already has this item size. So we have currently tiny and small. I'm going to bring a second text label in just for demonstration purposes. We will delete it afterwards, but it helps us check our work. So as you can see, this one brings in the item URL for the tiny version and for the small version. And you can start seeing that here we see slightly different specifications for each of these URLs. So this gallery allows us to access the individual URLs. I'm going to delete that. And instead, I'm going to bring the copy icon. I'm going to bring it up and resize it to 35 by 35. I move it slightly. And what I want to assign here is not an onSelect property to select parent, but actually I want to use the copy statement there. Copy, and then this item URL. So let's test that. Come here, I select Pagoda, click on that, and I'm going to go paste that. And there is my tiny pagoda. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to select this image, copy tiny, new browser window, paste that URL there, and I'm getting the image directly from the Pexels site for this particular item. Now I'm going to not make you watch me type every single item here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this collection to include all the image sizes that are available to us from Pexels. So now I have included not just tiny and small, but medium, large, extra large, landscape, portrait, and the original picture, which I associated with a URL I called raw. Let's run this. Let's go back to this one. And now if I select view, I should see all of those populate this gallery there. So there we are. We have all of them. This is not the best layout for this, so we're going to quickly change that. I'll make this smaller. And I'm going to make it a 2-column wrap count. So we get all of them in here, and I don't need a scroll bar or anything like that. So just like that, we are providing the users with all these different sizes of the pre-approved image. Let's test it again. So if I want to see the original for that, I can click here, open a new browser window, paste it. And now I also have access to the original image. All of this is great. We only have a couple of more things to do. First of all, we want to provide the users with the ability to search the images in either by the content of the descriptions, or secondly, we want to provide the users with the ability to look at them by category. So I'm going to do 2 things. First, I'm going to add a text input, bring that down there, align it, clear that text, and it's always enable the clear button. The next thing I want to add is a drop-down, and I'm going to use that one to filter by categories. I'm going to replace the items then here with the categories I have used in my database. Ideally, you would also be pulling this off the database, so you don't have to update the app every time you add a new category. But in this case, we are taking some shortcuts to make the video shorter. I'm additionally adding a category called None, which is one that when selected is going to allow me to see all the entries regardless of category. I'm going to rename this dropdown to DD categories. This one is already renamed a TXDI search. So let's now specify the way we are going to look at our items here. Currently, you can see that all we're doing is pulling the items from our SharePoint list, and they appear in the order in which they were entered. We're going to change that by applying a double filter and a sorting criterion. So what I have done right now is to apply a number of different criteria to the way the items appear here. Basically, we're looking at whatever I'm writing in the text search box, is that in the description, which is what we created in our SharePoint list, or is it in the description that the photographer provided? In addition to that, we are looking at whether or not this information matches the selected category, or if the selected category is none. We're filtering against those 2 criteria, and then we are sorting by column, and that is by the categories column. Let's test that. So here I'm going to look for the word laptop, and you see that the word laptop appears both in category new tech and women in tech. If I only want items that are in the women in tech, I will choose that. And then I can choose from either of these as a content creator. If I want something that is in portrait mode, I will copy that URL there. I can paste it in my browser, for example, And this brings the image for me. I can either, in my case, I use Buffer to create social media posts. So I have the Buffer plugin here. I can use that as save for later or create a post, or I can save it into my storage, or I can copy the image, or I can copy the link. And then I can always clear this and clear my categories and go back to working with my different images. So I hope you found this video useful. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. And if there's something that you think could have gone better, or if you have a different suggestion on how to do things, I'm always happy to hear what others are doing. So please leave it in the comments. And if nothing else, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.